Jim, here's a question from Rob Reynolds. Did Jim consider bringing Steve Austin into Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
What?
Steve seems to like Jim's work and Southern style wrestling, so it seems a better fit than ECW.
Well, consider bringing him in. It doesn't really take into account the whole scope of the matter. If I had heard, yeah, Steve Austin wants to come in and work for you for $100 a night, then yes, I'll help him carry his bags in. But no, remember when the Bodies and I and the Rock and Roll did the thing in WCW? That's where I first met Steve Austin. I had seen him on the Dallas, the world-class shows, and he got a lot of attention when they had the Valet feud with him and Chris Adams and Jeannie and etc. And you could tell
Tony.
he was Tony. And you could tell he was a good worker. And then we went down there, and that's when Austin and Pillman were the Hollywood Blondes. And, we had a couple of 8-mans on TV with the Blondes and the Bodies against Steamboat and Shane Douglas and the Rock and Roll. And those were great matches. They just clicked, boom, because I already knew Pillman loved Pillman. And so, yes, if I'd had the opportunity to bring Steve Austin in, I would have done it in a heartbeat. And I would have used him as well as I could possibly use him. But at that point, when he was fired by Bischoff, he had still been in WCW for a couple of years, making probably $100,000, 125, 150. I don't know what the exact amount was, but most of the contracts were for that back then. And I was not going to pay him anywhere near that, nor did I honestly think that it would be long before he went to the WWF, because I viewed him as that level of talent. When I saw that he went to ECW, well, that made sense because I guess Todd Gordon had a better budget. It wasn't Paul's money at that point in time. But I knew that Paul was paying guys per night guarantees enough to, get their attention.
Remember, he was just doing promos at first because he was still hurt. So the idea that you would have brought him into Smoky Mountain at the same time, he wouldn't have been able to wrestle or anything just yet.
Well, yeah, and I would not have brought him in to just do promos, because even though they were good promos, I could afford to bring somebody in to just do interviews that was hurt and couldn't fucking wrestle. And just because Paul wanted to do that, because Paul's audience was smart. They wanted good promos. The Smoky Mountain Wrestling audience were wrestling fans. They didn't care about how good the promos were, as long as the goddamn babyfaces won. Brian, am I overstating this case?
No, you're not.
Okay. And then it bit Paul in the ass because he brought Austin in to do promos, and he paid him to do these promos. And then when Austin was ready to wrestle, he signed with the WWF. Did he ever wrestle in ECW?
No, he did have a match or two because he lost. I think he was pinned by Mikey Whipwreck in the ECW title match.
Yes, he did one job on the way out because he'd been doing all the promos. But so it didn't do anything for Paul's business. It increased some talk from people who weren't in Paul's territory and couldn't buy a ticket to see his shows, but it was just a brief thing. So yes, all things being equal, I would have booked Steve Austin in a heartbeat, but I didn't consider bringing him in because it was foolish. Because if I had brought him in, when he got well, he would only been there for a month or two, and he would have gone to the WWF because they were paying bigger money.